The kettle was still whistling when I found the note. Steam fogged up the little square window above the sink, and her teacup, the one with the tiny crack shaped like mane, sat on the counter, untouched. The spoon was still in it, barely stirred. She always stirred. I stood there, just listening to that whistle scream into the silence, while outside, a delivery truck backed up across the street with that annoying beep beep beep. It felt loud, intrusive, like the world hadn't gotten the memo that something had just snapped. The note wasn't folded. It wasn't hidden. It was just there, on the kitchen stool, written on the back of a grocery list we'd made together the day before. Eggs, lentils, oat milk, things we didn't really need but always bought anyway. The words were in her neat, sharp handwriting. I'll be back after a short pause. That's all. No, love, Ramona. No smiley face like she used to draw in college when we were still pretending to be poor and romantic. Just that sentence. I turned off the kettle. It took me 2 full minutes to do it. I don't know why. Maybe because part of me thought if I left it on, she might walk back in, say she forgot her coat, laugh and call me dramatic, pull out some almond biscotti and ask me to split it. But no. No footsteps. No rustle of keys. No apology. Only silence. And the sound of my heartbeat, slow and stupid, in my ears. I walked through the house. Everything in its place, two in place. Her slippers by the bed, angled just slightly apart like she was still deciding which one to put on first. Her scarf thrown over the armrest the way she always did, with that casual flair that made it seem accidental. But she was gone. Not missing. Not taken. Gone. And here's the thing I haven't told anyone, not even my sister when I called her last night pretending I was just checking in. I saw the message. The one that lit up her phone 2 days ago while she was in the shower. It popped up and disappeared before I could stop myself. Are you still sure about Thursday night? No name. No emoji. Just that. And I didn't ask her about it. I couldn't. Because I knew the answer. And maybe that's the worst part. Not the message. Not the kettle. Not the note. But the fact that when she walked out, she already knew I wouldn't stop her. She counted on that. And she was right. I just stood there and let the tea go cold. It wasn't just that she left. It was how she left. The robe was still hanging on the bathroom door. Her phone charger was still plugged in next to the bed. A half-eaten granola bar in the glove compartment of her car, parked neatly in the driveway like she didn't plan to go far. There was no suitcase by the door. No makeup bag missing. Not even her toothbrush. People always talk about sudden disappearances like a dramatic movie, tires screeching, doors slamming, voices raised. But this was too quiet, too casual. Like she slipped through a crack in the world that I hadn't noticed before. I didn't call anyone. I couldn't. Because what would I even say? Hi, I think my wife vanished but left behind her slippers and a weird sentence on a shopping list. I sat down on the edge of the couch, and I just stared at the ceiling. The shadows from the fan kept rotating on the walls like they were mocking me, spinning around while I stayed still. I couldn't shake the thought that maybe she wanted me to feel like this. Not out of cruelty, but because she knew I wouldn't yell or demand answers. She knew I'd just absorb it. I finally picked up her phone from the nightstand. It wasn't locked. She never locked it, said it made her feel like she was hiding something. I opened the messages, feeling like the biggest coward in the world, but I needed to know. I needed something. The first thing I noticed? All the recent messages were gone. Completely wiped. Except for mine. It was like she cleared everything out, but left my text untouched. I don't know why that made my throat tighten more than anything. As if she wanted me to see myself talking into a void. Like that was the final message. But I kept scrolling. Desperately. Then I found it. One forgotten thread. One she must have missed. It was labeled only with a period. Dot. It wasn't long, but it was enough. Him. So you've really decided? Her. Yes. Him. No guilt? Her. It's been gone for a while. Him. He won't try to stop you? Her. No. He doesn't do that kind of thing. I don't remember dropping the phone, but I must have. It landed face up on the rug, screen still glowing, that one final line staring at me like a knife I couldn't dodge. He doesn't do that kind of thing. She was right. I didn't scream. I didn't call. I didn't rush out to confront anyone. I didn't chase her car down the highway or stand in the rain like some desperate romantic. I just sat there. And here's the worst part. I wasn't even shocked. I'd been watching her drift for months. The way she pulled her arm away slightly when I reached for her hand. The way her eyes glazed over when I talked about the books I was reading. The way she laughed too hard at things other people said, but never at my jokes anymore. It had all been happening in slow motion, like watching a glacier crack from a distance, knowing it'll collapse, but still flinching when it finally does. And yet, she left like it was nothing. Like I was nothing. Not worth a fight. Not even worth a proper goodbye. I walked through the house, room by room, looking for something that might explain it. A journal, a receipt, a single item missing from her side of the closet. But no, everything was there. And yet everything felt wrong. She didn't pack a bag. Because she didn't plan on returning. The oddest thing happened the next morning. I woke up expecting everything to feel collapsed, the world a pile of ash, the bed cold and hollow. But instead, I woke up to birds chirping outside the window. The sunlight spilled across her side of the bed like it didn't care she was gone. And for one brief moment, before I fully remembered, I stretched my hand out toward the other pillow. It was empty, of course. The indentation her head used to leave was already fading. I should have cried. I really should have. But I didn't. Not yet. I just lay there, blinking at the ceiling, trying to figure out why I felt. Still. Not calm. Not okay. Just suspended, like the whole house was holding its breath with me. I went downstairs and noticed the kettle was still slightly warm. That confused me. I was sure I'd turned it off the night before. Maybe I hadn't. Maybe I was more out of it than I realized. Or maybe my body was just moving on autopilot. Either way, it felt like the house itself didn't want to let her go yet. That afternoon, I went for a walk. I hadn't left the house in 3 days. The sky was a soft gray, the kind of sky that doesn't promise rain but doesn't rule it out either. I walked past the bookstore where she once accidentally knocked over a tower of self-help books. Past the cafe with the window seat she loved but never wanted to sit in because people watch you too closely. I ended up near the post office. That's when I saw her. Well, I thought it was her. Same coat. Same quick stride. Same habit of touching the edge of her scarf with her fingers. But when the woman turned, it wasn't Ramona. Just a stranger who smiled politely before walking into the drugstore. I stood there for a while, heart pounding like I'd seen a ghost. That's when I realized how dangerous hope can be. It pulls you up like a rope from a well, only to let you drop harder when it snaps. Back at home, I made tea, out of habit, I guess, and sat at the table staring at my phone. Still nothing. I considered texting her. Just one message. Nothing heavy. Just, "Are you okay?" But I didn't send it. Because I knew if she wanted me to know, she'd tell me. And clearly, she didn't. I thought about calling my mom. She always said Ramona was too quiet, too unreadable. But what would I say? "Hi, Mom. You were right. Ramona disappeared and left me staring at breakfast like it holds the answers to my broken life?" I couldn't do it. So instead, I opened the drawer where she kept all her unused notebooks. Ramona loved buying journals she never wrote in. One of them, a black leather-bound one, still had the price sticker on the back. I opened it. The first few pages were blank. But then, 5 or 6 pages in, I found something. Words. Scattered. Not full entries. Just fragments. Doodles. Thoughts. His quiet makes me feel smaller. Every dinner feels like holding my breath. Sometimes I wonder what it'd be like to be asked, not assumed. I want to be missed before I'm gone. I sat there, reading those lines over and over until the words blurred. She'd been disappearing long before she left the house. It hadn't started with the note, or the kettle, or the deleted messages. It had started with silence. Long looks. Smiles that didn't quite meet her eyes. All the things I noticed and ignored. She wasn't just gone. She had been unraveling slowly. And I had watched it happen like it was someone else's story. Now I couldn't tell whether I wanted her back, or just wanted to undo the parts of me that let her slip away. By day 5, the silence in the house had taken on a shape of its own. It wasn't just the absence of footsteps or her voice humming half-remembered songs while she watered the ferns. It was heavier than that, like the rooms themselves were holding on to something I hadn't noticed before. I started paying attention to details I used to overlook. A drawer in the hallway left half open. A black sock curled into itself beneath the bed. A half-filled page in the crossword book beside the toilet, 43 across, a 4-letter word for escape, left blank. As if even her puzzles were unfinished, just like everything else. I know it sounds paranoid, but I started to wonder if she wanted me to find something. Not in the dramatic, theatrical sense, not like a movie where the husband uncovers some huge double life, but more like a quiet breadcrumb trail. One that only someone like me, someone still foolishly hoping she'd walk back through the door, would bother following. And that's when I remembered the closet. Not the one in our bedroom, the hallway one. The one she used to say was hers and hers alone. I never questioned it. She kept journals, old scarves, and random things in there. I used to joke it was her museum of maybe one days. She always smiled when I said that. It was locked. That alone stopped me cold. I didn't even know it could be locked. It had never been locked before. I rattled the handle once, lightly. Then again, harder. Still nothing. I stood there for a minute. I don't know why. Maybe I was trying to decide whether opening that door would make things worse. Or maybe I was trying to hold onto some final thread of denial. Because once I crossed that line, once I started breaking into her secrets, I couldn't pretend this was just about space anymore. I got the screwdriver from the kitchen drawer. The same one I used 2 months ago to fix the broken towel bar she never noticed had been loose. And then I sat on the floor and pried the door open. It took longer than I expected. When it finally gave way, I actually flinched, as if something might fall out. Nothing did. But what I saw knocked the breath out of me anyway. Photos. Printed ones, not digital. Laid out on the floor in a grid. Most were face down. The few that weren't showed places I didn't recognize. A lake with a tiny pier. A small white cabin surrounded by pine trees. A hiking trail sign in a language I couldn't place. They weren't vacation photos. They felt personal. Secret. Sacred. And then there were the letters. Not addressed to anyone. Not even signed. But they were hers. I recognized the sharp, slanted handwriting. I picked one at random and read it. You don't see it, but I've already gone. My body stays, but my soul is always outside the door. I watch myself smile and nod and cook and exist, but I'm not there. I keep thinking, maybe he'll ask. Maybe he'll say he feels it too. But he doesn't. He asks about the mail and the thermostat and the neighbor's dog. And I nod, like I haven't been screaming inside for months. I sat on the floor, surrounded by her words, her images, her escape, and I realized something that made my heart sink in a way I didn't know was possible. She didn't leave me. She had already left a long time ago. Whatever this was, this note, this pause, this disappearance, wasn't sudden. It was her final sentence in a chapter one didn't even know we were writing. And the saddest part? I had been so focused on keeping everything calm, normal, intact, that I'd never even noticed she was fading. Not until she was gone. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I lay on the couch staring at the ceiling, waiting for some kind of answer to drop through the drywall. At one point, around 4:30 a.m., I thought I heard the front gate creak open. I leapt off the couch, heart hammering so loudly I thought it might echo. I pressed my face to the window, palms flat on the glass. But it was just wind. Nothing else. Ramona didn't come back. And maybe she never intended to. I tried to do something normal the next morning. I shaved. That was it. Just stood in the bathroom scraping a razor across my face like that might fix something inside. But halfway through, I caught my reflection and saw someone I barely recognized. I looked like a man who had been politely abandoned, quietly erased. Later that day, I got a call. Unknown number. I usually let those go to voicemail, but something made me answer. The voice on the other end was male. Calm. Slightly amused. Clarence, right? My throat dried up instantly. Who is this? You don't know me. But I know her. Just like that. No apology. No soft landing. Straight into the fire. I think it's time you stopped waiting, he said. She's not coming back. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My hand went numb around the phone. She said you'd probably wait a while. That you wouldn't yell. That you'd stare out the window for a week or two, hoping she'd get lonely. That's kind of sad, man. But also kind of expected. I swallowed hard. What do you want? He laughed quietly. Not loud. Not mocking. More like he pitied me. Nothing. Just figured someone should tell you. She's with me. She's been with me for months. And she's not confused. Or lost. Or coming back. I should have screamed. Threatened him. Something. But all I did was whisper, "Why are you calling?" Silence for a second. Then, because she didn't want to. Said it would break you. And she didn't want to hear you break. And then he hung up. I stood there, phone still in my hand, my pulse screaming through my neck. And for the first time in years, I kicked something. The cabinet door under the sink. Splintered it. Stubbed my toe. Didn't care. I didn't cry. Not right then. My body was too full of noise, like every thought I'd been suppressing decided to rise up all at once. Anger. Shame. Confusion. The worst part was realizing that some other man, a stranger, knew my wife better than I did. Knew what I'd do. Knew how I'd react. Knew I'd do nothing. That night, I drove. No destination. No plan. Just took the car and went. I passed a gas station about 20 minutes out of town, the kind with flickering signs and old soda machines that never quite work. As I slowed for the intersection, I saw them. Ramona. And him. Sitting in the back seat of a silver hatchback, her head on his shoulder, laughing. It was quick, a flash in my periphery, but I knew it was her. Her profile. Her red scarf. Her crooked smile that I hadn't seen in months. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did, and just looked through me. I sat at the intersection long after the light turned green. Cars honked. One driver even yelled. But I didn't move. I just stared at the taillights disappearing into the distance, thinking, that was her goodbye. That laugh. That was the last part of her I'll ever get. And all I could think about, absurdly, was how she never laughed like that with me. Not recently. Not genuinely. It was like I'd been married to a version of her, while the real one waited for someone else to arrive. And I, foolish, boring, quiet Clarence, never even knew. I didn't sleep when I got home. I didn't take off my coat, or even turn on the lights. I just stood in the hallway staring at my own reflection in the dark mirror across from the kitchen. The mirror Ramona insisted we hang to open up the space. All it did now was reflect a man who'd been left behind twice, once emotionally, and now physically. There's something about seeing your own shape in the dark that's worse than seeing nothing at all. Like you become a stranger inside your own skin. Eventually, I walked upstairs. I didn't know why, exactly, maybe instinct, maybe inertia. I paused outside our bedroom, not ready to face the empty bed again. Instead, I walked down the hall to the storage closet. I hadn't opened it in years. It was where we shoved things we didn't want to throw away but couldn't stand to see every day. Wedding favors from people we didn't like. Receipts from a canceled vacation. Old board games with missing dice. The air in there smelled like dust and detergent. I turned on the little bulb dangling from the ceiling and scanned the shelves. At the very bottom, wedged behind a pile of frayed extension cords and one of my old backpacks, was a cardboard box sealed with silver duct tape. Ramona's handwriting was scrawled across the top. Just one word. If. That was it. No label, no date, no hint of what was inside. I didn't recognize the box. I didn't remember ever seeing it before. I should have left it alone. Everything in me told me it was one of those things, the things you find when it's already too late, the kind of thing you can't unknow once you've seen it. But I didn't listen. I peeled the tape back, slow and clumsy, like it might explode. Inside were photos. Old ones. Some I recognized. Our first apartment, her graduation, the lake trip where I got sunburned so badly I couldn't wear a shirt for 3 days. But then, photos I didn't recognize. Ramona. With someone else. The same man I'd seen in the back seat. But the photos weren't recent. They were dated. 2 years ago. 3. Even before that. And in all of them, she looked more alive than she ever did around me. Her eyes sparkled in a way I had forgotten they even could. There were ticket stubs, too. From cities I didn't know she'd visited. Restaurant receipts from weekends she told me she was visiting her cousin. And then, tucked between 2 envelopes, a small, folded piece of paper. The handwriting was different. Sloppier. A man's. Someday we'll stop pretending. You don't belong in that other life. You never did. I dropped the paper. I couldn't breathe. All this time, she hadn't just fallen out of love. She had been living 2 lives. And I had been the footnote. The soft, safe, forgettable version of her life. The insurance plan. The backup. I stumbled out of the closet, gripping the edge of the hallway wall to steady myself. My knees felt like they belonged to someone else. I sat at the top of the stairs and tried to piece together how long it had been like this. How many lies had stacked into our dinners, our holidays, our shared jokes. I tried to remember the last time she'd looked at me without editing her face. But I couldn't. I realized I had loved her so much that I had stopped paying attention. I had loved her blindly. And she had counted on that. Not because she was cruel, but because she was tired of hiding and knew I wouldn't look. And now I had. And the truth wasn't liberating. It was suffocating. I didn't leave the house the next day. I couldn't. I was still surrounded by the smell of old cardboard and the weight of those photographs. The house felt like a museum now, when I hadn't realized I'd been curating for someone else's memories. Every room had traces of a person I thought I knew, but never really did. By noon, I was pacing. I hadn't eaten. I hadn't showered. I kept thinking maybe this was all a nightmare that just wore real clothes. I kept checking the front door, half expecting it to creak open, for Ramona to appear with some absurd excuse. I went to find myself and forgot to text you. Sorry. Something ridiculous. Something impossible. That didn't happen. What had happened was even stranger. Around 3:45 p.m., my email pinged. A confirmation. From Open Table. A dinner reservation for two, Ramona's name on the booking. Her email. Her favorite restaurant. Tonight. 6 p.m. And the weird part? It wasn't new. It had been booked 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, she was planning to dine with someone, while still sleeping beside me every night. I stared at the screen for 10 minutes. Then I did something I didn't even know I was capable of. I clicked Modify Reservation, changed the number from 2 to 1, and I went. Not because I wanted to see if she'd show. Not because I thought I'd catch her in the act. No. I went because I needed to sit somewhere she had planned to be and face the fact that she never intended to bring me. The maitre d' looked confused when I said I was the only one coming, but I didn't explain. Just followed her to a small table in the corner, one that faced the window. A beautiful spot. The kind of table you request when you want the evening to feel special. The server brought water. I didn't order anything for a long time. I just sat there, watching couples drift in. Some laughing. Some arguing quietly. One woman dabbing tears from her eyes while her partner stared at his wine glass. And then I saw him. The man from the photos. The man from the back seat. He entered from the side entrance, wearing a navy coat and holding his phone like it was part of his body. He looked calm, relaxed, and then he paused, scanned the room, and his eyes landed on me. He didn't look surprised. He looked amused. He didn't come over, didn't flinch, just offered a shallow, meaningless nod, the kind you give to someone whose name you don't remember but whose face you can't avoid. Then he turned, walked back out through the door he came in from. No call, no reservation, just vanished like smoke. I sat there for another hour, ordered coffee, tried to convince myself that I was the sane one in all this, that I had at least taken control of something. But the truth is, I wasn't there to reclaim anything. I wasn't there to confront or protest. I was there because I still didn't know how to stop orbiting her absence. And I think he knew that. That nod wasn't kindness. It wasn't even mockery. It was victory. A quiet acknowledgement that he had already stepped into the part of her life I never got to see, the part with candlelit tables and inside jokes and secrets I wasn't allowed to hear. I left a tip and walked out into the street. The air smelled like grilled fish and traffic. For a second, I thought about calling someone. My sister, my old college roommate, even my dad, who I hadn't spoken to in months. But I didn't. Because no matter what I said, I knew what the silence on the other end would sound like. They'd hear it in my voice. That hollow place where the hope used to live. I drove home in silence. No music. No distractions. Only one thought repeating in my head like static. She planned this. Not just the leaving. Not just the lies. All of it. And I was the last one to realize. I wasn't even a character in her story anymore. It's been 3 weeks since the night at the restaurant. 3 weeks since the reservation she made for someone else brought me face to face with the truth I'd tried to avoid for far too long. I haven't heard from her. Not a call, not a message, not even a receipt mistakenly emailed to our old shared account. She disappeared, not like a ghost, but like someone who rehearsed their exit until it was flawless. And maybe that's what I needed. Not a dramatic goodbye, not a begging apology, but a full, deliberate silence. The kind that forces you to sit with your own voice until you finally hear it again. The first few days after that dinner were hard. The kind of hard that doesn't come with tears or anger, but a numbness that made brushing my teeth feel like a task designed for someone stronger. I deleted her contact but kept hesitating when my finger hovered over the photos. Not because I wanted to hold on, but because I was afraid I wouldn't recognize myself without her in the frame. But then something shifted. It didn't come in a single moment. There was no sunrise epiphany. Just small things. Like the first time I laughed, really laughed, at a video my niece sent me of her dog sneezing himself off the couch. Or when I walked into a bookstore, saw a title Ramona would have loved, reached for it, and then kept walking because I realized I didn't need to share everything to enjoy it. Or when I cleaned out her closet, not in anger, not in haste, but slowly, carefully, one hanger at a time. Like turning pages in a book I finally accepted had ended. And there, buried under a pile of old sweaters, I found something I hadn't expected. A postcard. Unsent. From a tiny beach town we'd once visited for an afternoon. No message. Just a drawing of a dock and the phrase, "Start again." No map needed. It wasn't for me. I think she bought it for herself. But standing there, holding that small rectangle of paper, I felt like it had been waiting, not to be mailed, but to be found. I pinned it to the fridge. And that's when I made the decision. I packed a small bag. Just clothes, a journal, and a paperback I hadn't finished yet. I turned off the lights, locked the door, and left the house that held so much silence. No grand plan. No destination with a hidden message. Just movement. I stopped in a quiet mountain town 3 hours north, with creaky inns and sunflowers growing out of the cracks in the sidewalks. I found a room with a view of the hills and a tiny cafe next door where the barista remembered my name after one day. I've been here a week. I write in the mornings. I walk in the afternoons. I call my sister and actually talk, not just update. I've started listening to new music, things Ramona would have rolled her eyes at. And the best part? I'm not waiting for her anymore. I'm not watching the door. I'm not checking for messages. I'm not wondering if I was enough. Because somewhere in the quiet, I realized something important, something I had refused to believe all along. She didn't leave because I was unlovable. She left because she didn't know how to stay. And that's not mine to carry anymore. I didn't get closure. I didn't get an apology. But I got something else. I got peace. Not the kind you earn by winning. The kind you find when you stop trying to rewrite the ending. So if you're reading this, wondering how long to wait, how many signs to collect, how many silences to excuse, let me save you the time. You already know. You've always known. And when you finally stop chasing what left you behind, you'll be surprised how good the air feels when it's finally just yours to breathe.